recorded meeting. You can leave now and come back and watch the recording when I eventually get it uploaded to the YouTube channel. I think we're supposed to say that, aren't we?
Yes.
It actually pops up at the top now.
Oh, yeah. Let people in the meeting know they're being recorded. I already did.
And there's the privacy one, and also leave if you want.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll kick things off. So welcome. So this will be the last one for the year, because December tends to sort of start getting a little bit too chaotic for things, with travel and people on holidays, etc. So welcome everyone. My name's Mark O'Shea, and we actually have people in a room. So Steve's here. I don't know if you can, because it's reversed, I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction.
That's
Ben's there. Oh, no, hang on, I've got to look in the Ben's there.
Hey.
So we actually have people in person in here. So thank you. So I think we'll probably do at this stage. I think it looks like we might be doing next in person in Feb. So we'll make sure that more notice goes out as opposed to it being a week beforehand. We'll make it 2 weeks.
No, a week and 1 day. But
it's small steps.
We're setting expectations. We don't want to exceed them initially.
Yeah. So I guess overall, just to sort of cover off, quickly, what are we going to be talking about today? And as you've sort of noticed in chat, I'm using, because we're sort of not really doing, or I'm not really doing demos or anything today, I'm forcing myself to use the PowerPoint presenter mode for Teams.
You can disable skip forward, right?
But there's no big reveal at the end.
Oh.
I didn't put in a bunch of stupid pictures and memes and things, so there was no need for that. So I guess then just quickly, in case if anyone wants to do an introduction, we'll have a section coming up soon. I just wanted to do a reminder up then next that the technical takeoff that we mentioned last month, that the recordings are available for that now. So that it was kind of fairly incompatible with our time zone. So as much as I like the idea of getting up at 1 a.m. to watch sessions that were being recorded anyway, I chose not to.
A lot of them were actually pre-recorded.
Oh, were they? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I don't mind when some of these things are pre-recorded, because, again, some of you may have seen this with some of the Ignite sessions over the last few years, where sometimes the live sessions were terrible, just with video quality issues, audio issues, lawn mowers, leaf blowers, etc. So, I guess it's a matter of, I'm guessing most of you are probably in the situation that I'm in, where as soon as you see there's a big produced session, you probably switch off immediately. Whereas if it's a crappy recording of a Teams meeting, you're probably more engaged with that than something that's got fancy graphics in it and nice. What are the cool swipe effects and star effects at the moment in video?
Star wipe.
Yes, it's always star. It's always
will be.
Yeah,
it's the go-to. It's the default. Star wipe.
Yeah. Now for the next bits, we'll probably swap the year in review around with the Linux MDM support, because Jerome has been playing around with this, and he's on his way into an office of some type where he'll be able to sort of participate a bit more fully in that one. So we'll swap that around, unless Jerome says, "Oh no, I'm almost there," but we'll jump into that pretty shortly. So we'll do the year in review first, and then we'll jump into.
I think he's trying to say something.
Okay. Sounds good for me.
Perfect. We'll wait. We'll flip it and do the year in review on that Linux.
Yeah, we'll do a year of Linux in review. How's that?
Sounds good.
Everyone has to list a distro and give it a review.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Service was terrible. The meal was cold. And then we'll have the usual stop recording for general discussions at the end, just in case anyone's got questions that they want to ask that they don't really want being recorded. and placed on YouTube.
Or people want to say something that they're not allowed to have recorded.
Yes, we've never been in that situation. So, yeah, so one of the benefits of doing this PowerPoint live, which I normally would not do, is that you can actually click on that technical takeoff link and you'll see that the sessions are all there and ready to go. So you can just sort of pick and choose what's up there. We don't need to jump in and take too much of a look at that. And then just sort of finally, introduction. So anyone new or making an appearance who hasn't made an appearance for a while, if you want to either unmute to say hi or just drop comments into chat, we will. Or if you're in the room, yeah, say, yeah. But remember, the camera's over there, so you have to look that way.
Again, I don't think that's how cameras
It is. It's like a mirror.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Anyone?
Bueller?
The silence is deafening, so I think we can probably proceed.
Yep.
Okay, so. Oh, hey, how are you?
All right, sounds.
Hey, Georgie.
We are recording right now, so.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump on in to the 2022 year in review. Now, the idea here isn't to go through every single new feature that was introduced across a handful of technologies. Instead, it's just a few different things that sort of came to mind pretty quickly, and we want to open it up for anything obvious that you think we've missed, that you think is worth discussing in terms of any of the changes that have come across, mainly, not necessarily strictly Intune, but let's say, well, now Intune is a bigger category, so we can say Intune and Intune adjacent technologies.
Intune's actually a thing now. It's not.
It's a bigger thing.
It's back.
It's a family that includes itself.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so in terms of some of just the top level Intune pieces, probably, actually, I should go back and explain something quickly here. Notice that I've called this 2022 year in review. I didn't necessarily call it the 2022 highlights because there might be some things in here that some of you may not view. There's probably at least one thing we can probably collectively agree wasn't a highlight in some form.
I'm not going to comment.
So I thought you would have loved last month's session, Steve. It was good that you weren't there. So I had to pick on Quack for everything. And Quack played the game very well.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Oh, so funny how that topic turns into remote support. When, yeah, I don't see the relationship
I
there.
don't know what you're talking about.
So
Is there any issues there at all?
yeah, look, and I think we kind of did, the pros and cons of some of those changes to death. Now, if you're thinking, oh, I never saw remote support really mentioned in any detail in any recordings, it's because we did it after the recording stopped, because we kind of knew how the feedback would go on that one. But in terms of the overall the premium features that are coming, we spent a lot of time on this in last month's one, which is effectively we have to stop assuming that that M365 E5s are going to keep having more and more functionality jammed into them at the current price, and that's it.
Yeah.
So there's obviously there's a lot of feelings and opinions around some of these things, but but I think though. I guess on a positive note, though, if let me just go back and see. So, Scott, not sure if I read this correctly or not, and you might be the person who can answer it. Was the remote support was remote support added in for free to the education version of Intune? Legacy Intune, not new, not Intune, not new education. New. Is that something that you were aware of? Because I read something about it, but I did a quick search and I couldn't find anything officially supporting that.
Oh, sorry, is that a question for me?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't actually know if it was or not. I know that we have a deal to uplift all our licenses. So I think we're effectively on like E3 or I don't know. I can't remember what we did now, but Microsoft did some sort of super duper deal. But I think that might have been partially because Google was sniffing around to offer deals as well. So all sorts of things, all sorts of special things happen when stuff like that goes on.
Yeah. Predictable behaviours there.
Yeah, I know we have got a whole bunch of licenses for it, but I don't know if it was because it was included or if it was just a special kind of like here it is for your corporate staff type of thing.
Okay, so I'll dig into that offline and see if it's something that's there. Now so then some of these, which just sort of, I guess, some of the more recent things over the year, but now we've got the Linux MDM support. We won't go into that in any detail yet until Jerome's sitting down at a desk and able to communicate without those bicycles ringing their bells. So we'll leave that one there. The other one. Sorry, all I hear are dings.
Give me 10 minutes, I think.
Okay. Now the other one as well that sort of has started lighting or is lighting up in tenants now is Chrome OS support. Now this is something that we'll probably go into more detail early next year, but right now it's kind of limited. I think that's a polite way of saying it, but it's something that, realistically, it's something that has been requested for a long time. Now I guess some of the challenges we've got at the moment is apparently there's some issues around running Chrome OS in VMs. So we've got to try to figure out if that really is the case or if Ben can fix it for us. And Ben is now going, I didn't know that was happening. Alternatively, if any of you do use Chrome OS, do you know if you can do screen sharing from within, like Teams web app on a Chrome OS device? Does anyone know if that's possible? Am I talking to a group of people who?
I'd be curious to know how many people are actually using Chrome OS today or think it's useful.
We have you mean as in Chromebooks or?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know, we've got about 40,000 of them, I guess.
Yeah.
They're all pretty much in school devices. Yeah, so they're not being used for Teams and stuff as far as I know. But they're all managed. We all use the Google MDM for it, but I can't really imagine us switching that over to Intune anytime soon.
Yeah. Okay, so some of the other things then, just a few things that went into GA that we've had in preview for a while. So custom settings for device compliance, the settings catalog finally going GA. Even though I think everyone I knew was using the settings catalog, it was one of those areas where people were kind of ignoring the don't use preview technologies in production environments. Like I know none of you ever do that, but that was one of the ones where I saw people just say that rule doesn't apply here.
Actually, someone I think posted this week on Twitter something related back to the link that any preview thing released by Microsoft Preview is still fully supported. So, like they posted a link with some Microsoft official documentation saying that everything is in preview supported. So,
Was there an asterisk above that you didn't zoom into?
Yeah, it's to a point. Unfortunately, there's no.
Yeah, and
it depends on the scenario.
all right, cool then.
Depends on the feature.
Yeah.
So some products, if they're in preview, they do have a level of support.
Public preview, they were
Yeah.
still not going to have the same level of support of a full GA.
Depends on the circumstance. So some products their private preview or public preview is fully supported.
Mhm.
Some are limited support. It depends on the scope of documented support.
Okay, cool.
And the reason for that depends on complexity and the level of support that's required for that feature.
So that should be placed on any feature or documentation saying which kind of support you get, or how do you know which one?
There's the default. So Quark's just put in a link about all of that on the chat. When working with features in public preview, may have restricted or limited functionality. For example, feature may only apply one platform, typically go through feature changes before they're in general availability, are fully supported by Microsoft. Maybe selected geos, individual features in preview may have more usage and support restrictions. If so, this information is typically noted in the feature documentation. So it's that last line is sitting there and saying, yes, we support it, but
Yeah, yeah.
if there's a reason why we're not, it's in the documentation for that feature.
And the other important thing to note is that things can go through public preview from private preview into public preview and then disappear and never return.
Don't know what you're talking about.
So it's one of those things
Never
where,
existed.
yeah, I'm sure if you sort of looked across the stack of everything Microsoft does in the cloud, no doubt there'd be a bunch of things in there. But for this space, I really haven't seen that much. Like there's one Azure AD Connect example I can think of from 7 or 8 years ago where there was, I think it was was it group write back or something? There was
Group right back
it was
still in preview.
it was a write back feature that was in public preview and then just went, and people would sort of harass Alex or one of the Alexes who was on the Azure AD team about it and always get no response on Twitter for some bizarre reason. It's like, yeah, if we had something to say, responding to a random question on the internet would not be the place to say it. But thank you for asking. Your questions are valid. Now, I guess the other thing as well then that, just on the Intune front is, what we covered in a lot more detail last month, just around now, one Intune to rule them all. Everything is now Intune. So if someone says, they've got Word, it's like, oh, that's part of Intune. Excel, also part of Intune. No. So, so I guess just the, Intune as a brand won out, which Microsoft owns Intune. They've owned it for a while. So kind of an easy thing to stake a claim on and expand underneath that. Now, in terms of
everything is either going to be for Intune, for Azure, or for Defender.
yes,
Wait until they all join forces.
Defender for Intune.
Azure Defender for Intune management defense. No, I got nothing. I'll work on it.
Defender, no.
Is this like some
I got
part of a
interesting
Marvel
record.
universe or something?
Defenders of the Azure Intune.
So I guess this is just like a handful of different things that, and some of it just sort of more recent. Anything else for like any particular Intune functionality that lit up over the last year or so for anyone that, like, I don't want to say, was life-changing for you, like was something that you needed that has actually popped up in there? Yeah.
Just released 2 weeks ago, just got the first ticket on because no walk-ins was supposed, macOS patching.
Yeah.
That's a massive thing because we have a lot of customers with macOS and say, how do we push patch? And you don't, because you can get to a point that's going to keep nagging the user. If they don't give the consent, you're not going to be doing that. So right now, being able to put them on the same line as Windows, that is, you can say whenever these things happen is a big deal.
Removable media controls, getting the UX and all the security extensions.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people realize, but in the endpoint security blade, it's actually putting in controls now for Defender endpoints as well as Intune endpoints. So you can send policies down for your Defender client in the same UX as endpoint.microsoft.com or Intune, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Good old removable devices.
I love removable device controls.
And you can't really use glue gun in a USB port today when it's a USB-C port and it's your charging.
Well, you can. But what you're doing is you're glue gunning in the actual charge cable.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. We bought UB keys for everyone. Then I say, which one do you want, the USB-C or A? Oh, see, and now they just realized they need DC to charge to plug in the monitor. So I can't use it because the monitor only has one use. They say, yeah, I asked for everyone, what would you prefer?
Yeah, there was that short time period where like some laptops started shipping with NFC chips.
Mhm.
So they would have been good for that kind of thing.
Yep.
But of course, that was a
Expense.
bad.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, an expense. Yeah.
So I still have my smart card reader.
A or something.
But that one doesn't hit the cool smart cards like the good old Zircon.
No,
ones
it's
that had a modem and a.
Oh,
10
no, no,
megabit.
no,
You
no,
remember
no.
those ones? Phil's
I
like a mental
remember
image of
those
these,
ones.
the grey and red.
Thanks, I need another beer for that one.
The grey with the red ends that you've got to sit there and bounce between the different network adapters and modem and.
Yes.
And then hope that nobody actually put them in the bag while the adapter was still in the actual laptop because it got knocked off and broken and you couldn't use it and pull it out. And there goes a $5,000 laptop.
I think it's just not even preview yet, but announcement of labs is also not a
Yeah.
massive thing.
Oh, so that was one of the things from last month, I think, where it was we come to the conclusion that Laps was actually part of Azure AD.
Yeah.
But they
Might-
didn't, yeah, but they didn't, there was no real information on what level of Azure AD you needed to be at, but I'd have to assume it would at least be P1. That's, or maybe there's an Azure AD add-on for
Defender
P2
for
plans.
P1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Defender for Intune.
So anything else for anyone on the Intune side? Something that either addressed a pain point or enabled you to do something that you hadn't really considered previously?
Anyone at all?
I'm guessing that's a no. Okay, so then on the Win 10 and 11 side, I took a poll in the room before we kicked things off to say, basically asking, have people gotten over the fact that Windows 11 has got more stringent official hardware requirements? And the responses were mixed. And so, yeah, so people, yeah, different people are at different stages of grieving over those changes. Some people are still in denial. Some people are at acceptance. Some people are at the I'm drunk, ask me later. That's my coping mechanism. So yeah, so that is something that I think, like anytime there's something like that, like, it's like, and like I want to say it was a storm in a teacup, and we have seen too many of those storms in a teacup over the years to take it seriously when people say, I'm not going to do anything with Microsoft because of this, or this is the dumbest thing Microsoft's ever done. It's like, no, it doesn't even scratch the surface.
There's always wrong.
Dumb thing.
Try Microsoft Bob.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find something that you don't know about.
Yeah.
That Microsoft did
Yeah.
worse.
Mhm.
I think the toolbar on Windows 11 is a disaster. It's just the taskbar is just what a mess.
But there's a positive. So
Yeah.
there's a huge improvement if you're running Windows Insider builds. If you right click on the taskbar, Task Manager appears again. You don't have to go to the start icon and click. So,
Okay, done.
Very
magic. So,
That will save me about 10 clicks a day,
yeah, oh yeah.
at
So,
least.
actually,
Don't even get me started on the context menu. Right click thing that opens, and you need to do double clicking for everything now on, because none of the legacy apps showing that.
What were they thinking when they did that? It was an Apple designer, right? It was a Mac designer who must have come up with that design. I'm nothing wrong with the Mac, but that the fact that I can't have descriptions in my icons anymore
Yeah.
destroys an old man like me.
How dare they change this thing?
That's right. They'll fix it in Windows 12.
Yes. Now, on a positive note, semi-annual channel going away and just having annual releases. Like, I had not seen anyone complain about that.
Not at all.
I have not seen anyone say, I really missed that H1 feature pack.
It's that confirm until next year.
Huh?
Confirmed
Is it?
until, yeah,
Next year.
another strategy approach.
Yeah. Now, this is one that the next one we'll take a look at in a bit more detail in a session coming up. But if you are running, is it only on Insider or is it also 22H2 that the Android apps or that the Amazon Android App Store lights up?
That's expanded to more than just Android, hasn't it? Amazon.
No,
No?
it's just Amazon.
Oh, well then, yeah.
But if you are running an Insider build,
Believe it
for
was
sure,
22H2 as well.
yeah. But it's like at first when you go in and take a look at what apps are in there, if you've got kids who use that laptop, you'll probably be happy. If you're an adult and looking for interesting Android apps that you have on your phone that you want
There are many different calculators.
over on your PC, you're probably not going to find them. And I was sort of going like, why is it such a garbage Android store? And it's like, oh, because if you think about the typical audience who'd be looking at the Amazon Android store, well, they killed their phone, so it's not targeting their whatever their phone was called. It's people with their like Fire Sticks or Fire TV or basically like a handful of devices where the things that we would be loading onto Android devices don't really match the ecosystem that they're targeting. So hopefully that expands a bit because there are, I'm sure you've all, any of you, or even ignoring the Android side, even if you've got your favorite iOS apps, there's probably an Android version of that you might like to have instead of doing things through a website. So I was kind of, so I guess, yes, the technology is cool, but the limitations of the store partner, hopefully they get addressed, but I don't know if we're their target market, but who apart from a technical audience are going to deliberately install the Windows subsystem for Android? It's kind of a weird clash. So hopefully that's just something that gets resolved, or maybe they'll light up multiple stores, etc. in the future. But that one, it just seems like it's a weird combination in there. Now, I guess you sort of just open it. It's just mostly, even the categories, I think it's like all apps, and then the other two categories are games and kids.
Mhm.
I wanted more. I wanted something. I had to install Barbie's Dream House. That was it. It was the only thing I
Don't
recognized.
say you had to. Had and wanted two different things.
Okay, and then
Controversial point. How many Android devices in the planet now?
2 for each person,
And metric.
How many Windows devices for each person?
0.2 for each person.
Do you think Windows is gone? And this is a path.
Are we talking about specifically for like Microsoft mobile devices?
Deprecating Windows and saying Android becomes core?
Interesting.
No.
Who said that?
But when you look at the numbers.
It's not, yeah, but you're counting phones, you're counting mobile phones and tablets and stuff as well.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a strong delineation between mobile devices and more let's call them performance or productivity scoped devices. And I think Windows does a specific thing that Android can't do, which is potentially having two windows open at once. So yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Okay. I'm just being controversial.
Yeah.
And I look at the numbers and I look at the costs.
But
Yeah, but this is not a new thing. Like the Android numbers have been way higher than Windows for ages, and the costs have been where they're at for ages. I mean, Microsoft actually gives Windows away for free now anyway, so.
Yeah, and even just sort of adding on to what Scott was saying about it being phones. Like what's the market these days for Android tablets? Like I know Android tablets exist, but
compared to iPad.
Well, to give to your kid and not have it running on Windows, the Barbie house.
Yeah. But if you were like an Android app developer, would you even bother doing a tablet? Like unless the whatever app framework you were using had something that auto scaled the experience, et cetera, for you, like it'd be kind of a tough justification. And I think that's also one of the things that, like, why I wanted to test out some of the things over here was to see what kind of, what kind of apps would it be? Would it be something it's just basically stretching it out?
And to Ben's point, it's probably going to be a single tasking windscreen,
Yeah.
which is a retail point of sale.
Yeah,
Exactly. Type device with a bigger screen. Yeah, bigger screen. But it ain't going to be what you pointed out, which is the multi-type.
Exactly.
NVIDIA chip, massive desktop compute.
Yeah.
Requirement. Which is why Apple still exists.
Yeah.
Why Mac
And-
OS.
Exactly.
And also keep in mind that Windows is Windows by Microsoft. Android is not Android by anyone really. It's kind of how many different
By Google,
forks
isn't it?
and
A non-developed.
well,
Well,
yeah, but how many
iOS
different
is
variations are we talking about? Like we're talking about, Samsung, and everyone has their own variation of Android, and there is no Android in the same way that there is a Windows. So fragmentation and everything is always going to be a constant issue in the Android land for a long time.
And to that end, I find it interesting how Microsoft has changed Outlook now to force on the taskbar to the left, app launching. Is that the new Windows? Is Teams and Outlook the app launching platform? Not Android, not iOS, not Windows.
Yeah, considering everything that they want integrated into Teams. Like, you can definitely see, like, for the, what's the FSKU frontline? Is it
Yeah,
frontline?
F1 to F3.
Yeah, you can kind of see where Teams is like Teams even in a browser.
Yeah, it's just
is
the
the
launch
everything.
pad for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense, but again, that goes back to that sort of that's kind of like a kiosk based scenario, right? Where you maybe only have access to one app, but that one app can do a million different things. That's cool. But what if you want to do something outside of that?
And that goes to the point of this conversation around super apps. And what is a super app? What is super apps? And it really becomes an aggregation point of many apps as a launch pad.
Yeah, for
From what I'm reading,
Yeah,
maybe I'm misinterpreting what's coming out from the analysts around super apps. And I kind of see Teams as that aggregation.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now,
Target aggregation.
now I think
Oh my God, help us all.
the final bullet point on the slide, let's place some bets. No large value bets here, but can I keep this bullet point for this same session next year? So
Yes.
November 2023, will connected cache non-config manager version still be in maybe it'll make it to public preview. Maybe I will
going to be.
It'll make a public
sat here and say connected cache enterprise and education will work. This
Well,
time
it does work. Like we use config manager, but to call it to even say that MCC is a config manager thing is a bit of a stretch, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a web caching solution.
It's a tick box that runs a really awful install uninstall process that's almost divorced from config manager.
Private preview one.
Yeah.
But at least with this, like I want this to come out of preview so I'm allowed to talk about it more. Because the technology parts behind it are really, really cool. And it's, just other places where Microsoft is not sticking to, let's build something on top of our own technologies. It's like, so in this case, there's, even though it's basically it's a Linux container that you're running that contains it with this standalone release. So and even the other thing that I thought was interesting with this, and I guess I'll talk about it because it's not something I'm in the preview for, is the connected cache for ISPs.
That's
So with that one, I'm kind of curious with that one, if it's their way of saying, put this in instead of having, like, doing all of your Windows Update caching through Akamai or whatever, which you'd normally have. Like, I don't know if it's something that they want to complement that or if it's longer term a replacement for it. And also, I guess the other part of it is, do you actually have to tell people to point to that IP address, or does it basically go in like a transparent?
They will do a sort of DHCP, the same you do on the
Yeah.
closed review.
Oh,
And the thing
okay.
is, it will work on the basis of the same as how the ISPs offer like free Netflix and stuff like that, because they cache all the content in there. So they don't need to be re-downloading and reserving that every single time.
Yeah, so
It'll be the same as MCC does now, which is basically you have to add a DHCP option, which
Yep.
points you to what the cache or the boundary is or whatever you're using.
yeah, and the preview works well. The documentation is kind of shoddy. Like it's one page and they did an update a few days ago, but they didn't fix some basic things like putting a space in between get dash and whatever the commandlet was. It was get space dash, sorry, get dash space. And I think a few people, myself included, have sort of commented going, a few little errors here. You
Go then put a PR for changing that.
did.
Because if you do that, they will change way faster than you're actually commenting and saying something.
Oh,
else.
no, I had a
handling
handful
that, like.
I had a handful of recommendations because there's some stuff that they didn't proofread. But yeah, easy enough to follow. But yeah, so it's there, it works. And
I think the reporting is not good.
so
The report.
yeah, it doesn't.
It's hard for you to tell what's being used on the connected cache versus what's not.
Yeah.
And like from, I did some testing because there was like a customer of ours that wanted, and I just did on our office with small stuff. I could not tell for the life of our Windows 10 before we upgraded Windows 11. As soon as I deployed that with the DHCP option, the delivery optimization report built in clients was just not showing anymore. It was just broken.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't showing if it was coming from Microsoft for the connected cache or anything.
So with that stuff, you can push all of that into Windows Analytics in Azure, and that's free of charge.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you want to get the stats around that, now even there, I guess you could probably, I don't know, I haven't looked at the tables to see how much detail it's storing like per client. So that if you could build reports to see a lot more detail. But even with the current version of the reporting in connected cache on the client side now, they've removed the uploads to data uploaded to other peers on your network. So it's still showing anything you're downloading, like your download speeds and the volume, but it's not actually showing your uploads there anymore. And I guess they, maybe someone's like, oh no, just hide it from people. Maybe they don't want them to see how effective it is.
From the early versions of update compliance, there was so much stuff. There was like ISP and IP public, and then they just cut over because of like massive security problem, or knowing where people are connected to. And then they kept changing. Like I've been in talks with the team that created the update compliance version 2 and stuff, because we have our own problem, because it's not commercial ID based, is tenant based and sits at the customer, and there's no easy way for you to read the data as a third party aggregator. So it has its challenges. But anyway, the technologies in the end, it seems really good, and I think it's like how people like on SCCM DP stuff goes to Intune manage, having an assurance that they're not going to break the small links and stuff, because the optimization is good, but it's not as good as you actually forcing devices to just go to a central location.
Yeah. Okay, so but I guess though, like overall, just on the Windows side, especially with Windows 11, it was like, apart from like, issues that people have got with, refactored start menu or the hardware requirements, to me, it was kind of like an incredibly non-eventful year of a new Windows release. In terms of, and maybe it's just because we're not sort of jumping in and looking at every single new feature and capability that's in there. And it's like, no, I don't need to go in and assign a custom sound to every action, et cetera. We basically, I think now that, for most of us, I'd say, like, how often do you actually go in and explore Windows?
There's just a new thing that I just got to know last week that is really cool, which is the possibility of sending messages via Intune to Windows 11.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a big thing as well for pushing people and information on stuff.
So like the notification areas. Yeah. So, yes.
That in System Center years ago.
Sorry?
Yeah, but it's back and it's in Intune. Instead of doing that ability to push messages to users.
Of course.
But now we can do it in Intune.
Remember back in the days of NetBIOS and NetSend?
Oh my God, yes.
I'm surprised more people didn't lose their job. There are some people in particular I'm thinking of, and you probably shouldn't have done that.
No.
Yeah, so anything else then on the, like, let's just sort of say, you know, the combined Win 10 or 11 front, anything drastic that's changed for you? And yeah, I think, yeah, for most of us, it's just Windows. Is it, again, that's not saying anything negative.
No,
It's just, it's like I'm kind of like now I'm the same, like if
been consistent.
oh, there's a new version of iOS, it's like, oh, great.
Does anyone have the chance to test the new phishing stuff on Windows 11 22.8.2?
No, not yet.
I'd love to see if that thing actually works in practice. And if it might help people against actually those credential stealing and things like that.
That phishing at the device level rather than the cloud.
Yes, it's like it generates notifications and it blocks some.
I'd rather be more proactive than that. I'd rather catch it at reception in the cloud.
Yeah. Yes,
than getting it from the device.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so on the Azure AD front, probably for me, the biggest, like obviously there's always a ton of stuff getting pumped into Azure AD, but really just the additional conditional access functionality that's either gone into preview or GA over the last year. Yeah, so there's, yeah, basically like it's killed the, like, there's no, like, kind of hard to justify doing anything around identity protection over in the identity protection section of Azure AD now. It's like, no, just do it in conditional access, get granularity, target the users and the apps with different policies instead of you have one policy, you get to choose who you apply it to. So, yeah, so basically big improvements there. But other things in there, things like the authentication strength, so, and, you know, more of that recognition around, you know, targeting different policies for, you know, members of your directory versus external / guest users, etc. You know, seeing Linux support light up in there as well, so that ties into the next topic. Other things that I was curious to see how it would be received, but the number matching for Authenticator. So instead of, you know, you've got 1 chance in 3 of choosing the right one, you actually have to type it in. I wasn't sure how people would respond to that because people are generally quite lazy and want the path to least resistance. I want to, you know, people want to click one thing as opposed to type in 2 numbers and then hit OK. But every bit of feedback I've seen around this so far, people like it.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So yeah, so big part. Now the other one, I've kind of thrown this one in as a joke, but Azure Active Directory, part of Microsoft Entra.
Don't know what you're talking about there, Mark.
For Defender.
Let me show you. No, I won't go through the 20 or so exams that were updated over the last couple of months where that is the only change. So instead of it saying Azure AD, now it says Azure Active Directory, then in brackets, Azure AD, comma, part of Entra. Somebody was paid to do a search and replace across a lot of things. It's like, what's changed in this one this month? Oh, Azure AD is part of my. Tell me something I didn't know already. Now,
Mate, can I ask a question related to GDAP and JIT and GIA? Are you going to cover those sorts of things in here? Okay.
but you can if you want.
What is GDAP and GIA, first of all?
All right. So I know that many of these are end customers, but I work with partners and we've got a mandatory implementation of what's called delegated admin privileges, moving to granular delegate. There's a nod over there. Delegated admin privileges, and the community is confused, lost, really struggling with how to implement what we're mandating as the new model, which is basically a JIT and GIA model when they manage customer instances So to try and harden customers, well, I don't want to go through the list of names of companies. There's the public ones, but I can give you 10 times more that have been hit in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, oh yeah, we were chatting about some of that stuff.
Yeah, before I missed it. But yeah, there's 10 times as many who are not public.
Mhm.
Simply because our partners who are supposed to be managing customer environments.
Yeah.
Didn't you at some point enforce everyone at CSP to use conditional
We
access
did.
and everything? That was a
We that was on their tenancy. And then we pushed it down from the distributor to the reseller for their tenancy, but they haven't enabled it to the customer. And even at the customer level, their implementation is weak. So we're forcing JIT and GIA on them and they're going, it's not too hard.
So, but the other thing though, and this is
harder.
an issue.
$10 million, 10 million records.
Sitting in front of the government
Government
on
explaining it.
notified risk,
Notified
notified.
data breach.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a dude from Nortec who stood up, listen, I can say it because he stood up in a public environment yesterday and he lost his company because of the Kaseya smash. What was that, July 2 years ago? Yeah, he got absolutely smashed. 2 weeks, 4 hours sleep a night at best.
Yeah.
So the other thing as well, though, and this is something that sort of like this conversation going back a few years when things like PIM, et cetera, were first coming in, was that so first of all, like the partners may have had PIM in their own environments, but their customers didn't have any P2 licensing, so PIM wasn't lighting up. So then the question was, well, do they have to then go out and buy, if they want to do this properly, do they go out and, tell each of their customers to buy a PIM license to light up that functionality?
No, they shouldn't be doing that because what they should be doing is registering an application in the customer tenant and signing in with their account to give access to the customer's tenant. So they're still using the partner identity to access the customer tenant.
Should be doing.
And
They have.
it is fully controlled in that scenario.
So where you're saying do it properly.
Yes.
Okay. That's
So what you're saying right now that they have an account on each tenant for themselves?
There's a lot of people still do
Yeah,
that.
this,
Yeah.
If they're a,
Yes.
the sticky note on the screen.
And there's your audit. Where's my audit? I'm signing in some numbnut they've created in the customer's
Yep.
tenant. Well, it's the customer who did it.
Mhm.
Yep.
But it was actually the partner.
Because the partner.
Even if the customer does it, isn't it your responsibility to say, don't do
Under our T's
that?
and C's it is.
Yeah.
And so resellers I know in New Zealand are going into receivership
Yeah, well,
right now because of crypto mining worth millions of dollars. They can't pay the bill.
that's rough.
and this is where it's serious having this stuff in there.
So we try and implement this stuff and they go, it's all too hard. You talked about 3 buttons versus 2 digits.
Mhm.
All too hard.
Yep. Just listen, let me use my global admin. Open notepad.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well,
It's important.
I don't know if the partners tenants that are set up like that.
Control Shift Enter at all times.
All right, so sorry to.
Oh, no.
But I thought under the whole AAD construct and the idea of identity management and the requirements to do just enough time, just in time and just enough access.
What I see on a lot of customers is people that they use a GA account to manage desktops because by default, every time you add a device to Azure AD, it adds why does it add a representation of the GA group to manage devices? That doesn't make any sense.
It's
Should start with that.
that's actually by design. Because it ties back to the on-prem mentality of my domain admin has to have privilege to everything. And that's the same with global admin. Global admin has to have privilege to everything.
Yeah.
But what should be happening with global admin is the same as domain admin, which is limiting who gets added to that group.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting your desktop staff to have local admin on every computer, they should be using the cloud device administrator role rather than the GA admin. Having that conversation is quite hard.
Again, isn't it best practice even on on-premise environments that you deny global admins or you remove domain admins from local administrator on devices?
Most organizations don't do that.
I know they don't do that, but is there best practice or not?
Not that I've seen. Even when you look at the ASD, they don't say remove domain admin. They say control and contain that account.
Yeah, keys are important. Just don't give them to everyone.
Yeah. don't turn around and put domain users in the domain admin group, which I have seen customers do.
I've seen it.
It makes life easier
It's right.
for certain things.
Or don't put executives in domain admin groups.
Yeah, and that's to it, cases I know. It's all about execs.
Yep. Stand up to your executive.
Too hard.
You wouldn't have that.
Yeah, to do this.
It's really, it all just comes down to that.
Oh, je hebt nummer 1, dan moet ik even vakantie, denk ik.
Whoops. But yeah, the it's too hard conversation came up a lot when we were doing consultancy work. Not even just around the security stuff, but just around like, hey, listen, this modern stuff it's not modern. It's device management. It's here now. You need to use it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than you used to.
You should send all your work back to the office and put a big wall around them, and they can't take anything out of the office anymore, and they can't work from home.
I said this a lot, but
Go back to that if you want.
the most secure is just unplug power. Just drop power from the mains.
Yes.
You know, have no security issues.
The best one we had was the managing director that refused to have MAM enabled.
Yeah.
He then ended up in court,
Yeah.
arrested.
There were reasons why he didn't want men.
Honestly, he has a business justification.
Yeah.
Oh, it was, I'm not doing it. It's like,
Yeah.
CIO, get it in writing, put it to your risk board.
Exactly.
Okay, so then anything else on the Azure AD front?
The authentication string you mean is the latest one that either require hardware keys or?
Yeah.
That's a good one, but another one that was a time saving for us that we have a lot of B2B was being able to accept MFA tokens from other tenants.
Yeah.
So people didn't have to set two sets of tokens. That was like a lifesaver as
And
well.
device compliance from other
Yeah.
tenants.
Yeah.
The other one to throw in there that you haven't got up there is Cloud Trust. So
It's called Kerberos for Defender or something. Defender for Kerberos now.
oh, that's right, they did put Kerberos in there. I think.
Yeah, it is. It's Kerberos part.
Yeah, Kerberos Cloud Trust, part of Microsoft Entra Defender.
Cloud Kerberos.
It just Cloud Kirby. Just rolls off the tongue.
But yeah, so
Oh, okay, so
Cloud Trust was.
it doesn't, okay, I hate this.
Present mode because you got to represent it if you edit it.
This is even
up
dumber.
those
It's even dumber than I thought it was. I know, like I had something on a few weeks ago where somebody asked, can I use this mode? And I said, no. And they're like, why not? It's like, it's not the mode I use.
Yeah.
It basically breaks everything about my workflow in Teams. So no, I am not going to do it just for you.
I am a curmudgeony old bastard. This is how I'm doing it.
Oh, well, it's just the whole,
I get it.
having multiple screens and having second screen shared permanently.
Yeah.
So you can just easily switch without going, oh, hang on, let me fumble around for 30 seconds, trying to switch to the app that I want.
Yep. You know where you want everything.
I even have my little layout that has to be exact.
Of course. I believe you.
Yes. I can do a demonstration as to why I think it's the best possible layout.
Bet you can.
So this is what we're going to be talking about next, Fed.
This is how you should use Teams.
So yeah, Cloud Trust is actually GA now. It went from public preview at the start of the year to GA now. Why it's important and why you should be looking at Cloud Trust over any of the other Windows Hello for Business scenarios, it's easy to set up. You don't have to worry about certificates. You don't have to worry about anything. But it also enables the ability for FIDO2 keys to be enabled as well in your environment, because it's using the same channels.
So we've had years of talking about Modern North, and now we're talking about just exposing Kerberos all over the place again.
Yes.
But it's secure Kerberos.
Yes.
Different.
Okay. Now, last one, I've only put, I guess it's technically 2 items in here, but finally, Defender for Identity and Defender for Cloud Apps are now in the Defender portal. So instead of somebody going, which portal do I go to?
How do I get to MCAS? Let's be very clear.
What is it? You typed in cloudappsecurity.microsoft.com. Was that it?
I could never remember.
Yeah, /intro. Yeah.
I always had to Google it. Sorry, Bing it.
Yeah, so basically it's like they were sort of the final two. So Defender for Identity lit up in there probably towards like late last year, early this year. But Defender for Cloud Apps, I was actually surprised. It made a surprise appearance in my tenant. I'm like, I am overwhelmed with joy. Now it was interesting with the Defender for Cloud Apps because they didn't really seem to do much at all about massaging the way Defender for Cloud Apps looks at all. Once you get in there, once you click on it in the Defender portal, it's like, oh, they've just like done a lift and shift across, as opposed to let's make it feel like everything else. But I'm happy with that. Two less portals. So we should have sort of had an RIP section for.
We do, don't we?
No, well, I put that in after. But yeah, we should have said, had a lest we forget section for the portals that we no longer need to visit. But otherwise, like on the Defender front, obviously there's a bunch of additional functionality, et cetera, that's gone in. And I guess even just the final rebranding of MCAS finally becoming part of the Defender.
Hang on. You said a magic word there. You said final rebranding of MCAS.
No, and I said, and finally.
Yeah, but I think you should.
I didn't say.
Finally, MCAS has been rebranded under the Defender realm. It's not the final rebranding of MCAS.
I didn't say it was the final one. I said finally. Yeah. As in, it was way overdue.
Yes.
And then they gave it a name that was very, very close to the name of something else that already existed. But that's a
Names are hard. They're hard things to get right.
And I think just worth mentioning the tool that Meryl created last week, the CMD.ms, which just makes sense of all this portal crap and allows you to go just in one tool and get all the links for everything.
I don't want to say that if it takes the community to create a third-party solution to document every single portal, there might be
365maps.com.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate on this.
Mhm.
Anyone who complains that look at all these different portals Microsoft has, it's like, why are you complaining? You only use 3 of them. If you can't remember 3 of them, you've got an issue.
Aaron Dinnish.
It's only when someone's like, well, let's grab all the dev ones and all of this and all of that. Yes, there's going to be a lot. Because the last thing you want is one portal that covers all of that.
Sure.
Searching has got a lot better now too, though.
Yes.
Because it'll actually move you from one portal to the next.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to say too, though, is with the new changes, is that the technology has changed too in terms of like how they've developed the portals. Because I used to always have problems with cookies and what 1 minute you're in one tenant and suddenly you're thinking, why am I in this other tenant? But now, in the URL, you can see the company name, you've got that extra reinforcement that you're in the right tenant.
Yes. Yeah, because you would think just a profile in Edge or Chrome or whatever would be enough.
When you get to
Not always.
profiles, then.
I'm not even going to go.
So that's really just the official list now. Jerome, are you in a situation?
He's taking selfies, so I'd assume so.
Of course.
Where, because you're the one who's sort of jumped in and already done a bit and set up Linux for MDM. Do you want
Just a little bit, just very little bit.
We're not going to sort of nominate you as the Linux expert here, but I just wanted you to go through your experiences. I guess probably an important thing here is, let's sort of say as a Windows guy who had to jump in and start, testing some of this stuff out in Linux. Were there any, just to sort of go through any issues you encountered, either whether it was just sort of the instructions were designed for somebody who already knew what they were doing in Linux, or did you find that if you followed the steps, it was fairly easy?
Yeah, I just followed a few steps from some community articles, blog posts. I noticed that everyone is doing it on this own way. So I followed like 3 or 4 different posts, and one of them was working. So I switched back to the Microsoft Docs for this. I think I can show you a few. Let's see.
Let me back in.
Can I share my screen? Of course, I can share my screen.
Okay.
Yeah. The first thing what you have to do is to install Microsoft Edge on your Ubuntu machine, a virtual machine. And after that, you can install the Intune app, the company portal app. This is what Microsoft is saying from how you have to do it. And you have Linux of Intune supports 2 versions of the Linux version of Ubuntu. Is 20.04 or the 22.04. And they are both different, like this one. This is the packages for the 20 series versions, and this is the package for the 22. And some people are just installing, let's say, the 22 version of the Ubuntu, and they get the package from the 20 edition. So that's not really working well.
Sure.
But just follow these steps, and finally you will get something like this. Here we have Edge. It's easy peasy. And we have the Microsoft Intune agent. It's not really a company portal, it's just an agent.
Same icon.
Hmm?
It's just the same icon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the funniest part of this is that you only can check some compliances. My device is compliant. Woohoo! Of course it is, because I have here Intune opened. Yeah. Going to the Pingin Linux, and all we have is, we can only do some compliance policies right now at the moment. And with the compliance policies, we can do something like, okay, the allowed distributions from Ubuntu. What we have, we can do a device encryption. Just at the moment, I don't have any device encryption running, so that one is false for me. And we have a password policy. So these are the 3 main options that we can set for compliance policy at the moment, and hopefully there will come more. I hope. I really don't know, but let's see. And and you can use conditional access to further downgrade the security, of course. But
Awesome.
that's all we have at the moment.
Can you create custom policies with scripts? I think you can do that, right?
Custom policies?
Yeah, you can create a custom compliance policy saying run this script and just give me the output, and then you define what's like similar to custom compliance on Windows.
That one I don't know.
That's how
I didn't try it yet, or didn't see it yet, but
yeah, so it's still limited.
Custom compliance.
Oh, yes, you can.
Yep, and then you can run a script.
Yes, so you can do your discovery or your rules here. So what if you go in here and you select add settings, then you go to custom compliance, you can go and specify a JSON value and a user setting.
So this is your quick and dirty, do whatever you want with it as long as you know how to do it.
So long as it returns a positive result, I believe it will run on the device.
Sure.
Yep. Coffee script, my rule script, JSON value. I didn't try this yet, so. And hopefully we can do it the same with the Chrome OS version in a virtual machine, but that is not going to work, I think.
Chrome OS running it in a virtual machine is not straightforward.
And for anyone who hasn't worked with Ubuntu or Debian or anything like that. Obviously, the good news is that because we've got custom compliance as a thing, that means you can deploy PowerShell scripts if you've got PowerShell installed on the device. So it means that your management platform can be a little bit more standardized. What you'll be doing with the Linux devices is significantly different than a Windows machine, but functionally, if your PowerShell skills are up to snuff, then you can work with that device as if it was a Windows device within reason. So that's, it's at least they've, the feature set is small, but that custom policy stuff means you can kind of do whatever as long as you know how to do it.
But I'm sure there'll be some huge GitHub repos that.
Well, yeah, I'd be curious to see what it's like, yeah. There's definitely room if someone doesn't like sleep to write a lot of articles on how to change the background of your Ubuntu machine using custom compliance scripts.
As long as it reports compliant, who cares?
I want the background to be green.
Well, you can do that. So long as the script runs successfully and reports compliant. I'm happy with that.
Okay, so then I've just got some Linux questions for everyone. So how many of you have got WSL installed? And how many of you actually do anything with it? There are two very different questions there.
Use it all the time primarily as, so I don't interact directly with it most of the time, but it is a requirement to use Docker for a lot of things. So having the WSL instance essentially allows you to bootstrap in and build virtual machines. I did use it to test some stuff previously, but now that I use a lot of stuff in Docker containers, I'm using WSL without using it.
So what was the change going back, like maybe a year or 2 years, where it was that WSL enabled the streamlining of the Docker process? Was it something, do you remember what it was?
No.
Was it originally that you needed to have Hyper-V enabled, or was more that it was versus container?
Correct. So you can still configure Docker Desktop to not use WSL2, and you can say, hey, use Hyper-V to do this stuff. It doesn't work very well. It's not really designed to do that. That's for the scenarios where you want to build a Windows-backed Docker container. But there's very few scenarios where you'd ever really need to do that, because everything should, Linux is a lot more lightweight than Windows is. So, there's a reason this stuff exists.
Yeah, I guess the only Windows stuff that I really hear on a regular basis that people are containerizing are like when they're modernizing .NET apps and things like that. That's
But even then, so if you're modernizing .NET apps, first thing you should be doing is going, well, can we refactor this to .NET Core? Then it can run on super lightweight Linux instances. So
there's probably an IIS backend for it. Oh, you can containerize IIS as well.
You can containerize IIS. Don't containerize IIS.
It's like peaches
Use
and cream
Nginx
together.
like rotten peaches and cream.
Let's take the pain of your past and bring it.
But this time in a container.
I want IIS 5.0. They need.
Okay, well, I think we've covered the official topics, so we'll do the usual where we'll switch over to just general conversation. I think we've already started going down that path. So let me just stop the recording and just sort of any issues, outstanding things people want us to sort of talk about, we can do that here. So let me just stop